Well, we talked to a lot of insiders about Georgia's scrimmage on Saturday, and we wanted to give you a report. I want to make sure that you're taking advantage of the offer we've got over at Dog Post, which is the next 2 months of the season for $2 total. I'm going to put the link down below to our insider article from Saturday, and we've had a lot of reports coming in from folks who got a chance to see the event. Media are not allowed to be there for these scrimmages, and it was a day where the defense definitely won the day. And insiders are talking about not just the struggles from the offense, but a lot of the movement around on the offensive side of the ball. There are a lot of injuries right now that are taking place, and when you talk with folks who have a little bit of knowledge about this thing, they say most of that is precautionary. But there were at least 5 starters who would start against Clemson who are not there on the offensive side of the ball playing on Saturday. They were there, they just weren't playing. So, obviously Eric Gilbert was not there, and I am including him as one of my 5. Again, I encourage you to click below to make sure you're seeing the story. If you're watching this on mobile, I would go over to dogpost.com and take advantage of that article. $2 is certainly not very much for 2 months of service. So, JT Daniels had an okay day. I think really more than anything, it wasn't unbelievable. Kirby was talking about after the fact that when he met with the media that JT did not have all of his weapons, and I think it was hard to judge the offense yesterday considering everything that that was missing. I mean, everyone is aware that Warren Erickson missed or has been missing practice. Now he's got a cast on the hand that he snaps with. You also have got a situation with trying to figure out who your left tackle is for sure. It seems like that is developing maybe quicker than I anticipated to where there could be a solution there. We'll just see. I mean, the first scrimmage is not necessarily indicative of how the first game will be played. Typically, the defense does dominate. And but at the same time, Kirby was talking about how there were some decent runs yesterday, but you didn't hear a lot about older players. You heard more about guys like Justin Robinson, Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, Ladd McConkey. Those are young receivers. I mean, those aren't guys that have been around the block like James Cook or Zamir White. But I think when I was first talking with folks about it, they were really not impressed with what happened Saturday in person. I think it always depends on who you're talking to. I do feel like when the defense does well in these, people usually think there's something wrong, I guess you could say. Folks really cheer for the offense, it seems like, in scrimmages. I don't know why that is. That's been my perspective or perception over the last 20 plus years. There's just so many details I really just cannot go over in a limited amount of time here. This story that was published at midnight is over almost 2,000 words. So, people are moving around a lot. There was a lot of situational stuff. There were not a lot of penalties. And from my understanding, there was only 1 turnover. But that turnover was from a younger player who people are getting really high on right now coming into the 2021 season. And we'll see how that goes. There were a lot of, positional drills with the offensive line going up against pass rushers and stuff like that. But I think the biggest question coming out of this thing is who is going to line up where on the offensive line. Did Saturday give us any better indication of how that's going? And there are other questions too. Who is the backup quarterback? I think the answer to that is probably Carson Beck with Stetson Bennett behind him and then Brock Vandagriff as the 4. And folks are going to kind of be like, well, how, Brock Vandagriff's a 5-star guy and all that. Brock Vandagriff's been at Georgia for 8 months. So he needs time. And, that also may be underestimating Carson Beck to some degree and Stetson Bennett too. So you've got a clear pecking order, I think, at quarterback, which is, JT is your one, even though he didn't have the type of day that you would like. JT's your one. Your two appears to be Carson. Your three appears to be Stetson. And Brock Vandagriff seems like he's going to be taking everything after that. I do think that Brock had limited snaps yesterday, which is what happens when you're young. But there's nothing to be alarmed of there, I don't think. So we'll just see how that progresses with Brock Vandagriff. He wasn't a guy that you were really expect to see a lot of in this season. I do want to point out another recruiting note that we've gotten what we were hearing, which is below. We are starting to think that Mikal Williams will open up his recruiting. So he's committed to USC, and but the pressure or the continuing recruiting from the Dogs, the Gators, Alabama, and Florida State has us thinking that it's very possible that he will open up things in the future. What that will mean and where he'll go, I don't know. SC is trying to build itself back up after a decade of kind of up and down. But when you're so close to Alabama and Georgia, and to some degree Florida State, it does seem that that he would go all the way to California to play football. It's not out of the realm of possibility. It happens, but that's something to watch for sure. We think he's going to get an official visit at Georgia this fall. So where are we at after this scrimmage? I think the big thing is I can't relay everything in an 8-minute video to y'all. I do want you to go to Dog Post and check out some of the details. A lot of discussion about the offensive line, who looked good on defense. Some of the discussion about JT Daniels' day. But if you don't have an offensive line that you can really lean on, that's a problem. And right now it seems the question that's out there, at least to me, is did this scrimmage show that Georgia is weak on the offensive line, or that they're just trying to figure out who's going to go where? Are those the same thing? You've got a lot of really talented players who are going to be on this offensive line. The question is where, and that you're missing Warren Erickson. That can be problematic because he's definitely, to me, he's a top 5 guy on that offensive line. If he wasn't, he wouldn't have started in the Sugar Bowl against Baylor almost 2 years ago. If he wasn't, he wouldn't have been the guy coming in to be the starter at the end of this past year. So that he's playing center, when he's played guard in the past, I think they're trying to set 2 spots because the other spots are either already filled in or are fill-inable. That's a word. Center and then left tackle. And I think if you got those 2 things, the other places, the guards, you can really go with the best person. Who are the best guards? Is it Schaefer and Jamari? Is it Broderick Jones and Ratledge? It's a good question, and I think that's a lot of the intrigue right now at Georgia. Is who's going to be where on this offensive line, because once you settle that, you can set the rest of the offense. Go to dogpost.com. I got a link below. We'll see you on the website.